Well, hello and welcome to this edition of the DMZ America podcast. It is Wednesday, August 30th, 2023. I am, of course, editorial cartoonist Scott Stantis. I'll be coming to you from the right.
And coming to you from the left, I am old as shit, just barely 60 years old. I can't fucking believe it. Coming to you from the left, forgetting what I am, editorial cartoonist Ted Rall.
Who am I?
Why am I here?
No, the nurses.
By the way, did you notice at the Republican debate that Vivek Ramaswamy repeated the classic 1992 Admiral Stockdale line? You may be wondering who I am and why I'm here.
Oh, did he really?
Yeah, he didn't say like, who am I? Why am I here? Which is just was Admiral Stockdale's awesome opening. Not really wrong. You could sort of see why he did that by way of introducing himself, but it was just so weird. And then
the way he said it too, he had that old man like tinniness to his voice. Why? Who am I? Why am I here?
That's right. And he was an old looking dude too, but I think he was pretty smart. I don't know, but anyway, the point is that he was Ramaswamy did the same thing. He was like, you may be wondering who am I? Why am I here? What's he doing there?
Everyone's raving about what a great job he did. I'm not. I
agree. He did a great job because we're talking about him.
Yeah,
he got noticed, and that was your job on that debate stage, was to get noticed, even if it required you running around without pants. You needed to get noticed. No one noticed Asa Hutchinson. No one noticed Tim Scott. Tim Scott
that was
went
weird.
to the debate to kill his candidacy. That was the end for him.
Yeah, that was
Doug
so
Borgham
weird.
Did not get noticed.
Borgham, it just sounds like
Borgham. Sorry, Borgham rhymes with sorghum.
One of the great character actors from the 1920s and 30s, Romanian immigrant Borgman, with a thick accent, but always portrayed the bad guys in the movies. That's like, she done him wrong, and the sequel, she wronged him done. Anyway, yeah. So we're actually going to do some breaking news here. Rudy Giuliani, a federal judge, has ruled that Rudy Giuliani did indeed defame Georgia election workers, and the trial awaits on damages. Now, what's funny about this story, Ted, you're going to love this. It's a short story in USA Today right now. It says the decision came a month after Giuliani conceded that he didn't want to dispute he made false statements about election workers, Ruby Freeman and her daughter, Shay Moss. This is the part that's funny. Giuliani has said he made the concessions to get past the sharing of evidence in the case, and his argument, the case should be dismissed. Now, did he think that this was going to? Did he really think this was going to be dismissed? I mean,
probably, because as a guy I know who is me, has personally experienced, defamation law is very, very hard to win on, especially if you've been defamed. So it's been so Giuliani, I'm not sure, I'm gonna look this up now to see if Georgia has an anti-SLAPP law. But if so, that's what this motion was about. Yes. So Georgia has a very broad anti-SLAPP statute, which means that Giuliani invoked anti-SLAPP and asked the judge to rule that he not only should not be held liable for defaming these people, but also should be paid his legal bills by his own victims. Because that's what anti-SLAPP does. It's unbelievable. Liberal Democrats who should know better are in favor of this fucking law, but that's what it does. Anyway, the judge appears to have seen through it. In this case, I think what probably happened was that Giuliani was not going to prevail for the simple reason that he was that the people he defamed were not public figures. And that means the bar for defamation is much lower. When you drag like election workers who are just peons, who are nobodies, out of their, these are private individuals with a shitty, low profile, poorly paid job. And then America's mayor drags them out and rakes them across national television and makes it look like they flipped
By
an
name.
election by name. That's a problem. That is, and so the judge has ruled that, sorry, Rudy, this time you don't get to use anti-SLAPP like all you privileged white people usually get to do. And this time, for once, the plaintiffs are going to get some damages.
Now, does this impact at all what's going to happen in the trial? I guess they've scheduled it for the spring with Trump and the other, I guess the Georgia 12 or whatever we're calling them, in which Giuliani is one of them.
We call them 19, I guess, is what we would have to call.
Is it 19 of them? Okay, well, let's do that then. Does this impact that at all? I'm not entirely. It has to.
No, this is a civil claim. It does not have, and it's doubtful that they would even be able in the criminal case to even bring this up. It's not relevant. I mean, if you're tried for one of, now the thing is, if Giuliani testifies, yes, they can ask if he testifies in his own defense, which probably he will not do. But if he did, he would be, the prosecutors could ask him on the stand, isn't it true that you were found liable in a civil claim related to this same matter? And although it's not really the same matter, this is about what he said here was that Giuliani falsely accused them of mishandling ballots. And that's not really the main gist of the issue with the Georgia clause. But there's a relationship. I think he could bring it up. The DA could bring it up. Probably it won't happen because Giuliani probably won't testify.
Okay, so now our politics now apparently inevitably are going to go through courtrooms. So that this is what we get to live with for the next, well, until we're dead, I suppose. By the way, going back to you feeling old, Ted just celebrated a birthday. Do you want to tell him which one? Or
the big 6-0?
Yeah.
I know I don't look a day over 63. But
well, the worst part about getting older is I had one of those faces that when I was younger, I looked very young. And so people would say, how old are you? I'd say, I'm 37. They go, wow, you don't look it. Or I'm 42. And they say, wow, you don't look it. Yeah. About the time I turned 50, they say, how old are you? I go, I'm 50. And they go, huh. That's
yeah, I think that happened to me in my 50s as well. I was like you. I mean, there's my 7th grade ID photo. I don't look 12. I look 8.
I've seen it. You do.
And
you look like an immigrant from Romania.
I had been, in my defense, I had been caught in a cloudburst on my way over to have my ID taken. So I had all my hair down, like the intellectually deficient little boy on The Simpsons with a straight bowl cut.
Yeah.
It's like, I like cheese. Like I looked like that. And so I would say, like, when I was 55, people would be like, holy shit, you look so much better than that. Now it's like, I'll be like, how old are you? 60. I'm like,
yeah, that hangs together. You don't look 60. You don't look 60. You really don't. You don't look your age, and that's good, I suppose.
Well, it's a different time. I mean, people really do. I mean, just think about the way 60-year-olds looked, when we were kids. They were old as shit because they drank like fish. They smoked like chimneys. Yeah, they'd all been in wars, like 3 of them. So, yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking about my grandparents and who I actually raised me for a period of time in my life. I'm just trying to think back at that time. How old were they? And they were younger than I am now, but they seemed ancient. I said, well, maybe that's just, the arrogance of a 5-year-old child. I've dug up some pictures of that period and said, no, they looked ancient. Well, my grandfather did not smoke, nor did he drink. So he looked pretty good, but my grandmother was French. And so you can just do the math there. She also had this fox stole. I don't know, have any idea how we got there from here, but I'm going to mention that. Do you remember those? Are you old enough to
yeah. I barely, my godmother, God, what was her first name? I'm trying to remember. Anyway, the point is, God bless her. She was a fantastic woman from New York City who lived in Dayton. and still got the New York Times. Back then, that was a big deal in the early 70s to get the New York Times delivered in Dayton. Mrs. Powders, maybe Marianne, I'm not sure. It'll come to me. Anyway, she had one of those stoles. I saw it like it was with the dead fox, with the head.
The head is still on
and the feet, and obviously the tail.
Yeah, the only thing they did was gut it.
Right. There it was. It was like, I am wearing the carcass of a dead fox around my neck.
I mean, how old were you when you saw? I was like 5 when I see this thing, or 4. And
I was terrified.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was already old by then. It was like, this was been the 70s. So it's one of those things, like, people don't really realize when they look at like old movies that are set in a particular time period, that like most of the time, the big mistake they make is they make everything from the set design is all from that time period. So, for example, if a movie is set in 1935, they call a guy who has a bunch of 1935 collectible cars, and then they're all parked on the street looking all shiny and beautiful. And it's like, no, a lot of people, it was the Depression. A lot of people had old cars from like the early 20s or the teens, and they had dents. There were old pieces of shit on the street, right?
Yeah.
And even the new cars looked, a little, sometimes they had dust. They weren't always washed. So that's kind of like one of the things. So like when you look at the old Fox stole, in the 70s, that was already old. I think that was like a 1950s thing. And it was still there, because you don't want to throw away your Fox stole. What if it comes back? I mean, not to life. I mean, like,
well, although that would be like terrifying.
Yeah, totally terrifying. It's like kill yourself immediately.
Yeah, this was the 60s. This was the or for me, it was the early to mid 60s. My grandmother and the neighbors. It was Ted. I don't know why I'm telling you this. I'm not sure why. This has nothing to do with Rudy Giuliani, but I think you'll find this fascinating. I bet you wish you were part of this. My grandparents lived on a street in North Hollywood, which was surrounded by squalor, quite frankly, and ghettos. But they had this one street with their little tract homes and the white picket fences. And there was about 3 or 4 families, and they all knew each other, and they're all French. And so you'd go, and they would all, it was just wonderful. You'd go over, and Aunt Madeline would be there, and she'd be cooking something. And it was just a wonderful immigrant kind of experience, especially a French immigrant, which there are very few of it. Of all the Western European countries, France by far has the fewest immigrants to the U.S. But then why would you leave a country where they don't think work's that important? The cheese is excellent, and the wine is out of this world.
And cheap.
And it's all, and so their whole lifestyle is based on cheese, wine, and sex. I'm thinking, I'm trying to see the downside of this. I can't find it.
It's true. I mean, people don't really emigrate from countries that don't suck. It's kind of like it's sort of like the people who moved from the East Coast to the West Coast, go West, young man. Nobody left New York City or Boston who was rich and doing well. It's like only the losers headed west.
Yeah.
What's
the story of America?
The criminals, the fuck ups.
Yeah. You can be a fuck up and still succeed.
God bless America
in all of its glory. All right, we're going to cut this a little short. I was telling Ted, we're having the house pressure washed. And it looks like they've started it. And it looks like it's not too loud. For those of you who listen to the podcast with any regularity, if you remember Ted's pointing, was that? Oh my God, and it was so loud.
Yeah.
So we have podcasts with that running constantly in the background.
It's podcast traumatic stress syndrome, PTSD.
So it looks like he's actually started. It doesn't sound like it's too bad.
I don't hear shit. I mean, at all.
Well, I think he's on the other side of the house. So if it comes around this side, I'm just giving the listeners a heads up. Apparently that's what we do with a full service podcast that we are. Oh, here he is.
See, you hear it, but I don't hear it. So maybe it's only in your mind.
No, I think he exists, but do any of us exist?
Nobody knows.
No. There we go. Okay. Can you hear that?
No. Mm-mm.
Oh, wow. Okay. Hey, soaping down my house. Just getting me weirdly aroused. I don't mind saying. Weird. Okay, this may be the weirdest podcast we've done in a while. We're going to be back. Stick around. This is the DMZ America podcast for Wednesday, August 30th. I'm Scott Stantis coming to you from the right.
And I'm Ted Rall coming to you from the left.
We'll be back in just a jiff.